I'm 74 years old. And for 10 years, 10, I had a brother and a sister I never once spoke to. No phone calls. No birthday cards. Not a single Christmas. 10 years of silence over a house that wasn't even worth what the silence cost us. If you have brothers, sisters, or parents who are getting older, pull up a chair. Because what I'm about to tell you is the one conversation nobody in my family was brave enough to have. Until it was almost too late. My father died on the 22nd of December, 1994. 3 days before Christmas. He left behind a farmhouse, a rusted pickup, a coffee can of cash in the freezer, and no will. None. He always said, "You kids will work it out. You love each other." And we did love each other. We built forts in that house. We buried a dog under that oak tree. By the following Christmas, the three of us weren't speaking at all. I'm going to walk you through exactly how it happened. How 3 children who shared a bunk bed became 3 strangers in a courtroom. The quiet mistake my father made. The same one most folks listening to me are making right now. And the one ordinary afternoon that finally brought us home. Stay with me to the end. The last part is the thing I'd give anything to have understood when I was 30, with my whole life still in front of me. 3 things I learned, and I learned every one of them the hard way. First, how a loving family becomes strangers in a single afternoon, faster than you'd ever believe. Second, the small piece of paper my father never signed, and what it really cost us, far beyond the money. And third, what it actually takes to come back from 10 years of silence. Not a fairy tale. The real thing. Let me start where it started. At the kitchen table. My father was the most careful man I ever knew. He paid cash for everything. Never owed a soul a dime. He could stretch $1 till the eagle screamed. But the one piece of paper that would have saved his children, a will, a simple will, he never got around to it. Plenty of time for that, he'd say. He was 68 and strong as an ox. That's the thing about time. You always think you've got more of it than you do. There were 3 of us. I was the oldest. The careful one. Like Dad. Then Daniel. The middle boy who never left town. For 15 years, Daniel patched that farmhouse roof every spring with his own 2 hands and his own money. And then our baby sister, Ruth, who moved out to Denver but called Dad every Sunday night, without fail, for 30 years. 3 good people. 3 people who loved that old man. You'd think that would be enough. It wasn't. The house was worth about $148,000. Not a mansion. Just home. And because there was no will, the law made the decision for us. Split 3 ways, even and equal. Sounds fair, doesn't it? But fair on paper and fair in the heart are 2 different animals. Daniel figured his 15 years of repairs were worth something. Ruth figured all those Sunday calls were worth something. And I just wanted the whole thing to be over. 3 kinds of fair in one kitchen. Do you know what the first real fight was about? A chair. I'm not exaggerating. Our mother's reading chair. Faded green. One arm worn smooth where her hand used to rest. Ruth wanted it. Daniel said Ruth was never around. I said something I shouldn't have. And by the time the sun went down, 3 grown adults stood in the kitchen we grew up in, saying things you cannot ever take back. We drove home in 3 different directions. We didn't know it was the last time all 3 of us would stand in that house. Now here's what no one warns you about. When a family fights over an estate, there is exactly one group that never loses. And it isn't the family. By the time the probate court was finished, just over $19,000 of my father's money. Money he earned in the cold. Money he saved $1 at a time. Was gone. Paid to strangers in suits to argue about a green chair. He spent his whole life being careful so we could be careless with it in 18 months. But the lawyer's bill wasn't the real cost. The real cost was 10 Christmases. Ruth had a daughter I didn't meet until that little girl was 11 years old. Daniel had a health scare. A bad one. And I found out months later, from a neighbor, not my own brother. We didn't lose a house. We lost each other. And the worst part? We told ourselves we were standing on principle. We wore that silence like it was a badge of honor. It was just grief with nowhere to go. I remember the first Christmas after. Out of pure habit, I set the table. And then I just sat there alone, staring at 2 empty chairs, listening to a clock I'd somehow never noticed before. Twice that night, I picked up the phone to call Ruth. And twice, I set it right back down, telling myself she should be the one to call first. 3 states away, she was doing the very same thing. Reaching for the phone, then putting it down. That's how 10 years happen. Not all at once. One unmade phone call at a time. And I'll be honest with you now, because that's the only reason worth telling a story like this. It was never really about the money. The money was just the match. The kindling had been stacked up for 40 years. Who Dad loved best. Who did more. Who got to leave and who had to stay. The inheritance didn't create the wound. It just gave 3 hurting people permission to finally say the cruel things they'd been swallowing since childhood. So, if you're young, and you're listening to an old man tonight, hear this part clearly. The thing that destroys families is almost never greed. It's the things left unsaid for too long, and the papers left unsigned for too long. My father didn't divide his children on purpose. He divided us by accident. By leaving the hardest decision of our lives to 3 heartbroken people during the worst week any of us had ever known. And don't think for a second we were some rare, broken family. We weren't. They tell me that nearly 4 in 10 Americans are estranged from a relative right now, and a quarter of them from a brother or a sister. Roughly 3 out of 4 people will die without ever signing a will. We weren't the exception. We were the rule. That's exactly why I had to tell you. Now, how we came back. It wasn't a big, tearful reunion. It almost never is, in real life. It was a Tuesday. An ordinary Tuesday in October. My phone rang, and it was Ruth. Not about the house, Not about Dad, not about the chair. She called because her daughter had looked up at her and asked, "Mama, why don't I have an uncle? Haha." And Ruth realized she didn't have a single answer she could live with. So my baby sister did the bravest thing I have ever watched a person do. She didn't bring up the fight. Lord knows we were all guilty in it. She didn't demand an apology. She just said, very quietly, "I miss you. Can we start there?" That was it. 4 words. Can we start there? I have thought about those 4 words every single day since. The 3 of us met at a little diner halfway between all our towns. I'll tell you, the first hour was the hardest hour of my life. So we didn't talk about the house. We talked about Dad. We talked about that ridiculous green chair. And somewhere in the middle of it, Daniel started laughing. That big laugh I hadn't heard in a decade. And the ice that had been 10 years thick. It started to crack right there over cold coffee and a plate of eggs. Before we left that diner, we made 3 rules. Write these down, because they cost us 10 years to learn. Rule 1. Never again do we let a thing, anything, matter more than a person. A chair is a chair. A brother is forever. Rule 2. We put everything in writing. Every plan, every wish. Not because we'd stop trusting each other, but so that we would never have to test it again. And Rule 3. Every single December, no matter what, we get the family in one room. Even the years we were angry about something else. You show up. You always show up. My brother Daniel passed away 4 years ago now. I held his hand at the end. And I can tell you, with everything I've got left in me, the only reason I can stand at that man's grave without drowning in regret is those handful of Christmases we fought our way back to. We almost didn't get them. We came within one phone call of letting an empty house take the only people who ever really knew me. So if you take just one thing from an old man tonight, let it be this. Go call your folks, gently, and ask them what they actually want, while it's still a conversation and not a crisis. And if there is a brother or a sister sitting on the other side of a long silence tonight, you don't have to win. You don't have to be right. You just have to be the one brave enough to say, "I miss you." Can we start there? Because this kind of wisdom is only worth something if it gets passed down before it's gone. If this story touched something in you, do me a favor. Stay a moment longer. Because next, I'm going to tell you about my own father's final decision. The one he made before he died, on a single condition not one of us ever saw coming.